Welcome to my world history notes, where I discuss with you conclusions I've drawn from studying world history, and we're preparing ourselves to get into the Cold War. So I'm starting with the last year of World War II and some of the events from the 30s and 40s that lead up to that are important for us to understand. And these are things that shocked me that I've learned sometimes just by accident, and it really disturbs me. I want to, because it does have a big effect on what's happening right now. We'll get to that. Okay. So first, we're going to interject some cultural history. Now, this is in the era of the Democratic Party being mostly anti-communist, in spite of FDR's communist leanings. Um, Most of the Democratic Party was very, very patriotic and anti-communist at this time. So, but we're going to talk about things, some popular music and films that were written by communists, that communist people, outright communists, um, were involved with. And it's shocking to me because I grew up, for instance, I thought that Woody Guthrie's song, "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land," excuse me, I thought that was a patriotic song. And I did not realize from reading Woody Guthrie was a communist, and the song was written in opposition to Irving Berlin's "God Bless America." So the the communists, as I'm understanding them, would use um, icons of American culture, from the Declaration of Independence to the Founding Fathers, would appropriate them and use them to further their cause in the popular culture. Now, if you, as a definition of what's called the Popular Front, was a coalition of leftist political parties and people who were against a common opponent, which would be traditional America, which would be America. So the Popular Front is what you'll see um, working in a culture to further communist aims. And as I looked and studied, I saw that there was a great many famous writers, filmmakers, entertainers, and artists who were not only friends of communists, but there were also some that were outright communists that were members of the Communist Party. Um, and it's amazing. I mean, the party was not that large in the 30s, but and didn't have that much power, but they did have a lot of influence. So folk music that we know of today, like Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie, these were communist enterprises. These were part of the Popular Front. Um, Party members wrote "Ballad for Americans," "Strange Fruit," look that up, "This Land Is Your Land," "Native Son," "Little Foxes," "Mr. Smith Goes to Washington." Now, there were artists who weren't Communist Party members, but who were very close to communist and approved um, of their methods and approved of their goals. Created Citizen Kane, "Death of a Salesman," "Fanfare for the Common Man," "For Whom the Bell Tolls," "Yertle the Turtle," "The Invisible Man," and the screenplay for Casablanca, which is really disturbing. But you can see, if you look back, you can see things that maybe didn't pop out at first, but when you read these people that like Dalton Trumbo and stuff, who were communists, um, you can see things they inserted in these that would be designed to influence people to be more for the collectivist uh, policies. And and the novelists that were close to the party, there was 9 books at or near the top of the bestseller list from 1929 to 1945 that were written outright by communists. So the Depression really produced, I mean, it was looked at as a failure of capitalism, um, but it did give the communists a good foothold in American culture. So it's amazing if you look and study the people in our culture at that time who were communist and were behind a lot of things that I mean, we sang "This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land" in the 1960s in elementary school, thinking it was a popular, patriotic song. It wasn't patriotic. It was in opposition to Irving Berlin's "God Bless America." Woody Guthrie didn't believe in God. He didn't want, and he didn't believe in private property either. And that's one thing that, we have to be aware of. So, as shocking as it is, that's what I've learned. Now, back to the events of late January 1945. Interestingly, the Tannenberg Memorial was a monument to the Battle of Tannenberg, a lopsided victory against the Russians. In that memorial were buried the remains of its German commander, Paul von Hindenburg, and it was located in what was East Prussia, but is now in Poland. It was a national shrine. It was threatened by the victorious Russian attackers. In late January 1945, Hitler ordered Hindenburg's coffin to be removed, and the memorial was partially destroyed by demolition charges. Now, interesting battle in this time in Burma, which is now Myanmar, saw the British versus the Japanese in what was called the Battle of Hill 170. British success in this fight cuts off an entire Japanese division. I had never heard of it. Just learned about it. The last German stronghold of the Battle of the Bulge, St. Vith, was captured by the U.S. Army at this time as well. Now, Germany and Japan's defeat is inevitable, but there is still an unbelievable amount of blood to be shed, and there's interesting facts for us to learn. So next, I'm going to discuss the Yalta Conference, which is codenamed Argonaut. It was also called the Crimea Conference, held from February 4th to 11th, 1945, with a very, very, very sick FDR and Churchill and Stalin. Now, many conditions of the Cold War flowed from the agreements and betrayals made at this conference. We're also, as we talk about that, we're going to include each time the name of a particularly influential communist in our government. And then I'm going to try to stick with people that were known. I'm not going to try to make accusations against somebody who was later not proven, anything was proven. But I'm going to stick with people who were known to be communist or were convicted of committing perjury by lying about having been communist. And these are people who influenced policy in World War II and in our government. And just it's amazing the influence they had. And we will talk about people like that and the Yalta Conference. I'm going to go back to events of World War II. Right after Yalta, talk about Vietnam, Korea, Africa, battles, Iwo Jima, some interesting stuff there. Go back to FDR in Saudi Arabia. There's so much to learn. We to lay the groundwork for what's coming up, the Cold War. Thank you.